Comprehension means understanding. So, the purpose of reading comprehension is to test the ability of a candidate to understand the contents of a given passage. In aptitude tests, the reading comprehension section will generally have a long passage consisting of some paragraphs, followed by certain questions based on it. The basic passage types include topics from social sciences, physical sciences, business, and entertainment. Articles from social sciences may be on social or political issues. Entertainment could include articles about movies, sports, and the lifestyles of the rich and famous. When we get a passage, we must read quickly in a way that allows us to understand the idea conveyed in the passage. While reading, note the keywords that help us to understand the passage clearly. Now let us discuss some of the important aspects of reading comprehension. The main point or the central idea of the passage. Do you know, an article or a passage is mostly an analysis of a single idea. This single idea is the main idea of the passage. This main idea will be divided into sub-ideas. Each sub-idea is discussed in a paragraph. So, in order to identify the main point, we should understand the sub-points. To understand the sub-point in a paragraph, we should check the opening and closing sentences of that paragraph. You know, the opening sentence introduces an idea, while the closing sentence makes an opinion about that idea. Like this, read each paragraph and understand its idea. Then check all these ideas and make sure which idea is repeated more in the passage. That will be the central idea of the passage. To identify the main point, it is necessary to ask certain questions like, who or what is this passage about? What aspect of the subject is the author talking about in the passage? What is the author trying to get across about this aspect of the subject, etc.? The passage may be about a person, a thing, or an idea. A topic or subject could have many aspects or dimensions. We should find out the most important thing that is being said about the subject. That will be the main idea of the passage. Now read the passage P1 given in the slide. The Gulf Coast has been one of Western Europe's better job factories. The continent now has some 6 million golfers who spend an average of $1,700 a year each on their addiction. This $10 billion golf industry is already bigger than winemaking, and it accounts for roughly 150,000 jobs. A biggish course can employ 50 people directly. What is the main point discussed here? We learned that by reading the opening and closing parts, we can grasp the main idea of the paragraph. Here the opening sentence is, the Gulf Coast has been one of Western Europe's better job factories. The closing sentence is, a biggish course can employ 50 people directly. What do you make of these sentences? They express the employment opportunities in Gulf Coast. The entire paragraph discusses this point. Hence, the main idea of the paragraph is availability of jobs in Gulf Coast. Look at the slide. The second important aspect to be noted in reading comprehension is the title of the passage. We must be able to guess the right title from the content of the passage. Here is an example. There is a Hollywood movie named Sixth Day. The story of the movie is all about human cloning. The rivals of the protagonist, or the leading character of the film, create his clone. No one identifies who is the real one and who is the clone. Even the hero's wife and children fail to recognize the clone. This situation leads to many thrills and adventures. Anyway, the main theme of the film is the artificial creation of a human being. And interestingly, its title is Sixth Day. Is it a good title? To tell that, we should understand the importance of the sixth day. According to the Bible, the first day, that is on Monday, God created earth and sky. On subsequent days, He created many other things. On the sixth day, that is Saturday, He created man. On Sunday, He took rest. As the film is about the creation or cloning of man, the title Sixth Day is very apt in the context. Now read the story given in passage 2. The story is quite interesting, isn't it? We are asked to select a suitable title for the passage from among the options. A. Golden Bangles. B. A Master and a Disciple. C. Odd Action. D. Value of Immaterialism. As you know, a good title should express the central idea of the story. The first two options are commonplace and superficial. They do not convey the essence of the story. The master's action may be odd, that is strange, but behind that action there is a purpose. And that purpose is to show the meaninglessness of materialism. A wealthy man is supposed to be a man of materials. So the master wants to show his disciple how immaterial the materials are for a seeker of knowledge. Hence, it is not his action, but the truth behind his action which is the main idea of the story. Therefore, the fourth option, Value of Immaterialism, will be the most appropriate title. When asked to select a title, choose the one which is specific and includes all the essential ideas of the passage. A title must express the central theme. A good title should express the thoughts of all the paragraphs. A good title gives a clear idea about the content of the passage. Look at the slide. Here we discuss the third aspect of reading comprehension, mood and tone. A passage is written by a human being. It is essentially the expression of the author's emotions, thoughts, or opinions on a topic. A writer can express a subject positively, negatively, or impartially. If the writer looks at a subject positively, she uses words that support it. If she looks at it negatively, she uses words that criticize it. And if she looks at the subject in an impersonal manner, she uses words according to that. Hence, words tell us the nature of the passage. In order to find out the attitude and mood of the author or tone of the passage, we should look for words that convey emotions or values. A writer's emotional state and a sense of right or wrong or values are reflected in a language at the time of writing. Pay more attention to adjectives. Adjectives are words that express the quality or nature of a person, thing, or idea discussed in the passage. Check whether these words have positive or negative connotations. We should also know what the author is trying to do through the passage. Is she describing, explaining, or analyzing? When we describe something, we are concerned only about the superficial aspects of it. But when we explain, we go deeper into the topic. And when we analyze, we examine the pros and cons, that is, each and every aspect of the subject. We must understand the people she is addressing. This is very important. An author who writes on a subject for professionals naturally uses lot of technical jargons. But if she writes on the same subject for common people, definitely she will avoid all the difficult words and use a simple language. Now look at the passage P3. About 12 years ago, I walked past a magazine kiosk in Europe and noticed the words Temple des Rats on the cover of a French magazine. Rat Temple? I was amazed. A few months before, a friend of mine had travelled to northwestern India to write about the world's only shrine to mankind's least favourite rodent. The temple was in a village in the Marustali desert. That two Western journalists should have visited within a few months of each other stunned me. Naturally, I bought the magazine. We are asked to identify the mood of the author of the paragraph. The options given are angry, happy, skeptical, and sad. Well, what do you make of the mood of the author from the passage? We know that diction determines the mood of the author. Now look at the underlined words in the paragraph. These words clearly tell us that the author could not believe the existence of a rat temple. The news of a rat temple amazed and stunned him. That is why he bought the magazine. He was doubtful about the authenticity of the news. Hence, the mood of the author is skeptical or doubtful. See how words help us to identify the mood of the author. Now read the passage P4 and answer the questions given there. The question is about the tone of the passage. A writer can be positive, negative, or indifferent about the topic that he writes. He can be either biased or critical towards a theme he handles. Writer's emotion at the time of writing determines the tone of the passage. Here again, words help us to identify that tone. In the above passage, even though the writer supports the necessity of a new institutional foundation for literary culture in the US, he is doubtful about how it will be founded. Though he writes with mixed emotions, the predominant feeling is one that of apprehension. The underlined words in the passage like shaken up, at stake means in danger, but little evidence suggests, and muddle means a state of confusion, clearly show that the writer is anxious about the outcome. Hence, the tone of the passage is apprehensive. Now, let us think about two important types of words found in passages, which will help us to improve our comprehension of the content. They are keywords and trigger words. Let us first look at keywords. Keywords are the most important words in a sentence. This is because they determine the meaning of the sentence. A keyword can be either a noun or a verb. A noun is the name of a person, place, or thing, and verb is an action word. As we know, a sentence is a group of words that make sense. In a sentence, some words are more important than the other words. The real meaning of a sentence is determined by these important words or keywords. Hence, we must pay attention to the choice and order of the words in a sentence. We must know the idea expressed and how the idea is expressed in a sentence. Let us see a couple of examples to understand this. The keywords help us to understand the right idea expressed through a given sentence. To spot the keywords, we must look for the most determining words in a sentence. Now let us look at the two sentences given in the slide. The keywords are underlined there. See the first sentence. Success is a ladder, not an escalator. In this sentence, ladder is a keyword. Why? The sentence defines what success is. So the defining word will be the keyword. According to the sentence, to achieve success, a lot of hard work is needed. It is not as easy as going upwards in an escalator. Each step should be climbed. So the word ladder defines the nature of success. That is why it is a keyword. Now look at the second sentence. The folly our descendants are least likely to forgive us is the ongoing loss of genetic and species diversity. The sentence expresses that the genetic and species diversity is decreasing day by day, and this will harm the nature. The coming generation will be in danger in such a scenario. Hence, they will never forgive us for our foolish deed of greedy exploitation of the nature. Two pivotal words, ongoing and loss, very powerfully convey the idea aforesaid. Without these words, the sentence is meaningless. Therefore, they are the key words that determine the meaning of the sentence. Like keywords, trigger words are also very important in determining the meaning of a passage. Trigger words always signal a change in the direction of a passage. Most of the time, these words contradict what is said earlier. A set of commonly used trigger words are given in the slide. They are but, although, however, yet, in spite of, nevertheless, unless, in addition to, on the other hand. Look at example 1 given in the slide. They had been toiling on the field for many years, yet they could not make any progress. Here yet is a trigger word. Look at example 2. They were absolutely tired. However, they managed to climb up the hill. Here the trigger word is however. In both examples, the first sentence tells something which is contradicted by the second sentence. This deviation in the course brings a change of meaning or idea. So they are very important in understanding the meaning conveyed. One of the common questions we find from reading comprehension is related to the meaning of unfamiliar words. Interestingly, the purpose of this question is not to test our vocabulary or word power, but to evaluate our ability to extract the meaning of a word from the context. Here, we must deduce the meaning of the unfamiliar word. So when we are required to identify the meaning of an unfamiliar word, look for context clues. First, we must think about the subject of the passage. The topic of a passage determines the choice of words used in that passage. We can see a lot of technical words related to engineering in an article based on engineering. Like that, a wildlife article may contain many words from botany and zoology. A business article will have words related with transactional world, while an article on spiritual life will have plenty of abstract words. Well, after having a clear knowledge about the subject of the passage, turn to the paragraph in which we see the unfamiliar word. Then understand the specific details mentioned in the said para. After that, focus on the sentence that contains the unfamiliar word. At last, give special attention to the words that precede and follow the unfamiliar word and examine them thoroughly. This narrower approach from macro to micro or whole to the minute will definitely help us to understand the meaning of the given word. Look at the two sentences given in the slide. She was telling the beads. The girl fell senseless to the ground. A word is underlined in each of the sentences. What do these sentences convey? You know, in English language, a word has different meanings on different occasions. This is because a word can be used in different parts of speech like noun, verb, adjective, etc. For example, the word cross can be used as a noun in a sentence like look at the cross. Cross is a verb in let us cross the road. And in are you cross with me? Cross is used as an adjective meaning angry. So before deciding the meaning, we should consider the primary and secondary meanings of the unfamiliar word. Now let us look at the first sentence given in the slide. She was telling the beads. We all know the primary meaning of the word tell, but here it means counting the beads on a rosary. Actually, in this context, counting means praying. In the second sentence, the word senseless means unconscious. So do not confuse that the girl fell foolishly or nonsensically to the ground. Remember, passage context has great importance in determining the meaning of the given word. Now let us see how we apply this in the context of a passage. Read the passage P5. Look at the underlined word eschew. It's an unfamiliar word. How can we find out the meaning of the word from the context? We can apply the techniques which we have discussed earlier. The passage is about Gandhi's concept of development and how the power-mongering rulers considered such a grand ideology. Gandhi advocates the self-sufficiency of the villagers in food and clothing. Then he says to eschew the glittering prices that the 20th century so temptingly offers. Note the word temptingly. If something is temptingly offered, most of the people accept it. Gandhi, being a spiritual person, will not tell people to accept glittering prices that tempt them. Actually, he wants them to abstain from temptation. So the meaning of the word eschew can be abstain, keep away, or avoid. This is how we extract the meaning of an unfamiliar word from the context. Look at the slide. Inference. Sometimes we must infer to understand the inner meaning of the passage. The word inference means a statement about the unknown made on the basis of the known. When we infer, we reach a conclusion through deduction or deducing. Deduction means a conclusion reached by reasoning from general laws to a particular case. Inference requires us to use our own judgment. We must not take anything directly stated by the author as an inference. Instead, we should look for context clues. We need to interpret the passage. We should have the ability to read between the lines. When we are asked to make inference, we should look for what the passage implies, not what it states directly. The inference must be a logical development of the information provided by the author in the passage. Inferences go a tiny bit further than the passage itself. In Japanese pictography, two images give a third meaning. Suppose, in a picture, if we see the image of a dog and a plate of food, the idea conveyed by the picture is that the dog is hungry. Here, hunger is an inference. So let us go beyond what is written or said when we infer. Read the last passage, P6. This is a small story. Let us read it once again. Once there lived a master and his disciples in a big house. There were many rooms in the house. Most of them were locked. One day, when the master was away, the disciples opened the rooms one by one to know what was inside. In a particular room, they found some hoofs and horns. Then they had an idea. They decided to frighten the master by wearing those hoofs and horns. That night, they wore the hoofs and horns and entered the master's room. He was sleeping and they made noise. He woke up. Then they said, "We are going to eat you. We are going to eat you." The master looked at them and said, "I thought your education is completed, but now I understand that you have not studied properly. Go and sleep." The master said so because the last sentence of the story is incomplete. How can we complete it? Here, we must deduce the missing part of the last sentence. Why did the master say so? The answer to this question is purely inference based. Of course, the answer is not directly stated in the story, but a careful reading will help you to reach the answer. From the master's words, we understand that the disciples have not studied something he had taught. If we can infer from the underlined words, we will get the answer. What is the peculiarity of the animals with hoofs and horns? Well, they are herbivorous. After wearing hoofs and horns, disciples said, "We are going to eat you. We are going to eat you." Herbivorous animals eat only plants. So the inference is, animals with hoofs and horns do not eat meat. We get the answer from the information provided in the story. Now let me conclude by highlighting a point which you should remember always. While reading the passages, always try to understand the author's point of view. This will be possible only when we put ourselves in the author's place. Here, we discussed in detail the most important aspects of reading comprehension. All the aspects mentioned here will equip you to understand the comprehension passages better and help you to perform well in the aptitude tests. All the best.